I saw the chat records between my boyfriend and his friend on his phone. Why didn't you confess your love to your first love? My boyfriend replied, because she's so excellent that I don't think I'm worthy of her. His friend asked again, what about porridge then? Porridge can make me better good enough to be worthy of her. It goes without saying who this she is. My boyfriend's answer was serious and didn't seem like a joke on a whim. He analyzed it one by one from aspects such as appearance, personality, academic achievements, and so on. Finally, he came to the conclusion that, she's so excellent that I'm not worthy of her. His friend asked again, what about porridge then? My boyfriend sent an emoji that said, life sucks bro, and then continued, porridge can make me better good enough to be worthy of her. At this moment, my world fell apart. It turned out that everything I had been doing all along was just helping another girl. I silently put down Gabriel's phone and shrank to the other side of the sofa, flipping through my vocabulary book, but couldn't concentrate on it. After a while, Gabriel came out of the shower. Honey, I don't want to study today. How about taking a day off? When he said this, he looked lazy with his eyelids drooping slightly. I used to love him like this the most because in the next second, I would stand up and rush over to kiss him and act coquettishly towards him. Just try not studying. And he would reluctantly reach out his hand to embrace me. All right then. Kiss me again and I'll study with you. Every time at moments like this, I would feel a special sense of accomplishment, as if I had saved some delinquent teenager. But that chat record. She's a postgraduate. In terms of education, I'm not worthy of her. I felt that my behavior was extremely ridiculous. I raised my head and took a look at him, then picked up my textbook under his expectant gaze. Okay, you take a rest. I'm going to the library. Gabriel was slightly stunned for a moment and then immediately pulled up the corners of his mouth and slumped on the sofa. Honey, you're so nice. I'll pick you up later. I silently nodded my head, opened the door and walked out. Not long after I walked on the way to the library, Gabriel sent me a message, "Are you okay?" I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and replied, "I'm okay." The exam was coming soon, and I didn't want this kind of thing to affect my future. I buried my head and struggled in the sea of questions. When I finished, I found that there were many missed calls on my phone. This had never happened before. Perhaps I was too abnormal today, and Gabriel also sensed that something was wrong. When I walked out of the library, Gabriel was waiting for me in the shade of the trees. As soon as he saw me, he came up to me. Honey, I accidentally cut myself while cutting fruit for you just now. With that, he stretched out his finger to show me the slightly red wound. In the past, I would surely feel extremely sweet. While blaming him coquettishly for being careless, I would take out a band-aid from my bag and carefully wrap it around his finger. Don't cut fruit next time. Gabriel put his hands on my shoulders, ignoring the wound. Porridge, what's wrong with you again? But at this moment, looking at his face, I suddenly felt that he was so strange. It was as if I had never known this person before. The past of the word again was about two people with grudges in their hearts. During the long time we had been together, I had only lost my temper with him once. He forgot our anniversary. Porridge, isn't it just an anniversary? What's the difference from every ordinary day? Do you have to be angry? No matter how straight he was, I was fuming with anger at that moment. This day is very important. Every girl would hope that her boyfriend could remember it. Really? Suddenly, he softened his tone. Does every girl want to celebrate anniversaries? Seeing that I didn't respond, he began to comfort me again. Honey, don't be angry. I'll remember it from now on. Not only was his attitude gentle, but he also immediately booked plane tickets to Dolly, where I had always wanted to go. In this way, my anger was unconsciously soothed. But alas, it turned out that my anger was just like a teaching lesson for him. It's okay. You always thought I was nagging, so I won't bother you anymore. Gabriel kept staring at me. After a long time, he threw out a sentence, whatever. His anger was shown in his indulgence in the bar, as if on purpose. When our mutual friend asked, "Did you block Porridge?" he replied, "Do I need her to care about me? I pretended not to see it and fell into a deep sleep. At some time in the night, the phone rang. Gabriel's voice, mixed with the smell of alcohol and anger, came through the receiver. "Porridge, are you really able to sleep soundly? Don't you care if I sleep with other women?" At 4 o'clock in the morning. I finally fell asleep, but was woken up by his phone call again. I said in a cold tone, "Gabriel, I don't care what you do anymore." After saying this, I hung up the phone. Until I woke up, the phone never rang again. Strangely enough, the insomnia and worry caused by his late return in the past had completely disappeared. I slept very well. When I woke up again, it was already the next day. Teacher Du's urging was like a death knell. "How could you sleep? How could you sleep at your age?" The curtains were tightly closed, and the light outside the window could be faintly seen. I saw a shadow beside the bed. Knowing it was Gabriel, I asked in surprise, "When did you come back?" In the past, even if he got drunk at a party until midnight, he would come to bed, put his arm around my waist and call me coquettishly, "Honey, give me a kiss." But this time, with the strong smell of alcohol, he just sat there silently and didn't take the initiative to get close to me again. I didn't even know when he came back. Seeing that I opened my eyes, he also opened his mouth. His voice was terribly hoarse. "I drank until midnight, but you didn't even call me once. Even when I came back, I found that you didn't leave a single light on for me at home. You didn't hear the sound when I closed the door at all. Do you know when I came back?" In the dim starlight, he stared at me and questioned, "Porridge, what's wrong with you exactly?" I sat up and turned on the light. The sudden brightness made both of us squint our eyes. I noticed that his usually neat face looked a bit decadent. There were new stubbles on his chin and his eyes were full of bloodshot. "Gabriel, I saw that I'm not on your top pinned contacts." It was Grace, the so-called first love. Gabriel's pupils dilated slightly and his lips moved. I continued on my own, "You told your friend that she's so excellent that you're not worthy of her, so you're with me. In your opinion, she's great, and I'm not even your second choice. I'm just a stepping stone for your love." I sniffed. The last bit of hope remaining in my heart gradually became elusive with his reaction. "Gabriel, do you have anything to explain?" Suddenly, he stood up, wanted to say something, then reached out his hand and impatiently scratched his hair. He didn't dare to look at me directly. After a long silence, he finally chose to give up. "Porridge, why did you look at my phone?" At this moment, the only little hope left in me also dimmed. I didn't expect him to react like a cornered dog. For a moment, I actually felt like laughing and really laughed out loud. "Let's break up." Yesterday, I had been thinking all day about what mood I would be in when I said this sentence. Sad, sorrowful, unwilling. But unexpectedly, when the words came out, I felt completely relieved. In an unequal relationship, it's better to have a quick pain than a long one. Gabriel looked at me in disbelief, not believing that these words came from me who had chased him for a year. "Are you serious?" After a long while, he finally realized that I wasn't joking. "Whatever. I'm not worthy of her. Am I not worthy of you either?" After saying this with a dark face, he slammed the door and left. I silently packed my luggage. At that time, Gabriel was afraid that he wouldn't study seriously, so he coaxed and tricked me into studying with him to supervise him. At that time, I only felt sweet in my heart, thinking that I had found a good boyfriend who had included me in his future plans. But now I think it was just a joke. Dragging my luggage back to the dormitory, my roommate stopped what she was doing, opened her eyes wide and was very surprised. "Why are you back?" I said calmly, "We broke up." My roommate blurted out without thinking, "But you liked Gabriel so much. How could you agree to break up with him?" She just said it without thinking. After the words came out, she realized that she had said something wrong. "Porridge, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that." I don't blame her. People who witnessed the time when I liked Gabriel probably thought that I would hold on to this hard-won relationship. Gabriel was good-looking and played basketball well. He always had a casual smile on his face. He was quite famous in the school and was a frequent figure on the confession wall. Liking him was probably the bravest thing I had ever done in my life. I gave him love letters and repeated it again and again after being rejected. I sang Cantonese love songs to him in the singer competition held by the college. I never missed any basketball games he participated in and cheered and shouted for him. It was in such repeated acts of liking that he casually nodded and agreed to be with me. Perhaps everyone will feel inferior in front of the person they like, just like he did towards Grace, and just like I did towards him. So I resigned myself to being the one who gave more. My roommate carefully asked, "Is there any possibility for you two to get back together?" The chat records played back in my mind one by one. In terms of personality, she's very gentle. In terms of appearance, she's very beautiful. In terms of education, she's a postgraduate. I'm not worthy of her. And he casually replied to his friend's question, you said porridge. She can make me good enough to be worthy of her. That's her only advantage. It turns out that words as cold as -40 degrees can come out of a person with a body temperature of 37 degrees. I took out my luggage one by one and put them away. There's no possibility. I just realized that if I didn't get up early in the morning to make breakfast for Gabriel, didn't leave the library early at noon to go to the cafeteria to buy his favorite sweet and sour pork tenderloin for him, didn't accompany him for a walk in the evening, and didn't leave the library early at night because he wanted to play basketball. In one day, I could memorize so many more words, do so many more questions, and consolidate so many more knowledge points. The seat reserved for Gabriel in the library had been empty for a few days. People around who knew Gabriel were discussing it carefully. Did they break up? Well, how could Gabriel, a person who loses interest quickly, take the postgraduate entrance examination? It's already a miracle that he persisted until November. Guess who proposed the breakup? The library was so quiet that even a little bit of talking would be infinitely amplified. Needless to say, it must be Gabriel. Before the words were finished, they were suddenly interrupted by the sound of the table being bumped. This is the library. If you don't study, don't affect others. Gabriel pressed his school bag on the table and angrily reprimanded. The library was so quiet that we could hear each other's breathing. Several people curiously looked up at me and then at Gabriel. I lowered my head and continued to study, ignoring it all. For a long time, I could still sense the gaze falling on my head. Then, there came the rustling sound. Gabriel took out the books in the cabinet one by one and put them into his school bag. The noise was not small and it could be felt that he was in a very irritable mood. It was as if he was deliberately trying to make me uncomfortable. I wanted to ignore him but suddenly remembered that the notes I had organized were still in his hands. I looked up and happened to make eye contact with him. I wrote a note and handed it to him. "My notes are still with you." Only then did I realize that he had been looking at me all along. I didn't know for how long. When he saw the content on my note, the expectant look in his eyes gradually disappeared and he withdrew his gaze. His hands paused for a moment, then he lowered his head and casually flipped through the notes before answering perfunctorily, "I can't find them. I'll return them to you if I do." I nodded and didn't say anything more. Gabriel wasn't willing to put in a lot of effort into studying. He always sought to do the most efficient things in the least amount of time. And the thing with the highest cost-effectiveness for him was to coax me to help him with just a few words. And surprisingly, I was willing to do it and even felt sweet about it. Things that seemed so sweet before, but now when I look back, I just feel ironic. A few days later, Gabriel sent me a message, "I found the notes. Come and get them." I didn't want to pay attention to him, but those notes were indeed written by me stroke by stroke and it took quite a lot of time to make them. I was a bit reluctant to just give them up. I replied, "Where are you?" As if he had already been certain that I wouldn't refuse. Almost at the same second, Gabriel reported a location. It turned out to be a girls' dormitory as well, just another building close to our dormitory. I walked along the place he mentioned. The closer I got, the noisier it became. On the other side of the grass, a group of people were cheering and shouting, "Get together! Get together!" I didn't go closer. From a distance across the grass, I saw Gabriel with a smile on his lips, lowering his head and gently saying something to a girl. The girl had fair and delicate skin, a small face the size of a palm, and cherry-like lips. She was very pretty, blushing and playfully telling everyone to stop making noise. As if afraid that I couldn't hear, Gabriel's voice became a bit louder. "Be my girlfriend, okay?" Each word was forceful, and every sound was clear. So, after breaking up with me, he was worthy of her. My existence was really quite meaningful. Across the crowd, Gabriel suddenly turned his head to look at me. Our eyes met, and my heart felt dead inside. I pulled the corners of my mouth mockingly at him. A hint of annoyance flashed in Gabriel's eyes. In the crowd, Grace nodded with a smile and playfully threw herself into Gabriel's arms amid everyone's teasing. After watching this cheesy confession, I felt a bit bored. But since I was already here, I wouldn't be willing to leave without getting my notes. I don't know how long it took, but finally, the crowd dispersed. Gabriel didn't leave directly. Instead, he and Grace walked towards me step by step for some reason. I got straight to the point. I pretended not to see anything else. It took all my strength not to curse, and I couldn't bring myself to say a word of blessing. "Where are the notes?" Gabriel was stunned for a moment. He lowered his head but didn't take out the notes. Instead, he took out a cigarette box from his pants, pulled out a lighter, and started smoking in the dark. When I smelled the strong cigarette smoke, I subconsciously frowned. I had always hated his smoking. I was afraid that he would get sick, so I always tried to restrict him and asked him to quit smoking, but now, I didn't care whether he lived or died. When Gabriel saw my furrowed brow, his eyes suddenly brightened a bit, but the light disappeared in the silence between us. After a while, he broke the silence first and laughed a bit nastily. "Who would bring school supplies when confessing?" Thinking of something, he added, "I almost forgot. There was really a bookworm who brought them when confessing." He was talking about me. Actually, when I confessed to him before, what I brought wasn't school supplies but a love letter. I was afraid that I would forget the words because of nervousness, so I put the confession words in a book and took it out to read from time to time. After confessing, when Gabriel saw a corner of the book and asked about it, I tried to cover it up by saying it was school supplies. Ignoring the other implications in his tone, I said in a cold voice, "Did you never intend to give them to me?" Seeing his acquiescent look, I got a bit angry. "I don't want the notes anymore." The notes were just an excuse. He just found a reason to make me a witness to his love with his first love. And I, once again, stupidly believed his words. Hearing what I said, Gabriel's voice was mixed with a bit of anger. His voice was hoarse after smoking. "Porridge, am I in your heart just like those notes, something that can be easily thrown away?" In the dark night, his pupils seemed to have a faint glow, as if they were going to devour me. I looked up at him. The face that once fascinated me had lost its luster inch by inch during the long process of indulging and tolerating. At this moment, it seemed that I had never known him. How could he confess his love to another girl just a few minutes ago and then come to question his ex-girlfriend about why she broke up with him in the next moment? He must be crazy. I didn't answer his question but instead touched on his sore spot. "Gabriel, there's one thing you're right about. You really don't deserve her." Both of us knew clearly who her was. Gabriel's face darkened successfully. When I returned to the dormitory, my roommates were discussing something. When they saw me, it suddenly became as silent as death. Even with a little thought, I could tell what they were talking about. "It's okay. I watched the live show. Your news is even slower than mine." Seeing that my expression was natural, my roommates started talking again. "Damn it. That scumbag. It's only been a few days. Porridge, you did the right thing by breaking up with him. That girl isn't that great either. She can't compare to Porridge." I knew they were speaking up for me, but still, speaking from my conscience, I said something fair. "Actually, I think she's very pretty." I looked in the mirror. Because of the pressure of the postgraduate entrance examination and the tight schedule, my hair wasn't taken care of properly. It was dry and frizzy, my face was sallow, and there were dark circles under my eyes. But I also knew that this was just temporary. My roommate said with some relief, "It seems that you've really let go." My roommates began to curse Gabriel loudly in the dormitory. In the dormitory, they didn't call Gabriel by his name anymore but referred to him as "that scumbag." The first thing they did every day was to click on his updates to see what he had posted, and then they would criticize him based on the content of that day to start a new day. At first, my roommates did this to take care of my feelings. Unexpectedly, later, as they cursed more and more, it became the #1 item on their daily to-do list. Roommate opened his updates while brushing her teeth and started scolding angrily, "Damn it. How dare that scumbag take his new girlfriend to Dolly? He's really desecrating my sacred paradise. Ugh, I almost threw up the grilled fish I ate 2 days ago." Hearing this, I paused while brushing my teeth. The two words, Dolly, were like a switch, prompting me to also lean over to take a look. The photo showed that Gabriel had written the gentle words, "Baby, I love you," on the beach in Dolly. And when the tide was rising, another picture was taken, in which Grace was held in his arm with one hand in an absolutely possessive and protective posture. The girl was gentle, and the boy was cool and elegant. They looked especially well matched, and even the waves seemed to be the messengers of their love. Although I already had no feelings for him, my heart still felt a dull pain, feeling that I had been treated unfairly. The things he used to coax me on our first anniversary were now eagerly shown off to his current girlfriend to win her favor. How disgusting. I spat out the toothpaste foam and also cursed, "Pa, that scumbag." When I arrived at the library, I found that another boy was sitting in Gabriel's former seat. He had an outstanding bone structure and long, thick eyelashes. When he saw me, he raised his head and mouthed, "Is this seat unoccupied?" I shook my head and also responded with lip language, "No. I wasn't that domineering to occupy 2 seats by myself." Not long after I sat down, a note was passed over. "I've always seen you sitting in this seat. Can we get to know each other?" He seemed to think it was too abrupt, so he took the note back and hurriedly continued writing on the paper. "In the future, if I arrive early, I can also reserve a seat for you." His handwriting was really nice, with each stroke being vigorous and powerful. I was just about to refuse when I looked up and caught a glimpse of his red ears. He was staring at me without blinking, with an expectant and nervous look in his eyes. Obviously, it was the first time he had done such a thing. Suddenly, I couldn't bear to refuse him and found an excuse for myself. It wouldn't be bad to have someone help reserve a seat. With this thought in mind, I opened my QR code with a clear conscience. The boy's lips immediately curved into a smile, revealing 2 tiger teeth, unable to hide his thoughts at all. "I'm Ethan." After sending the message, he put down his phone again and began to concentrate on doing the exercises. If only one could ignore the blush that spread to his neck. Then it could probably be called concentrating wholeheartedly. Ethan said he would reserve a seat for me, and he really did. I arrived early enough, but I didn't expect that he arrived even earlier. There was also a steaming egg and a bottle of milk on the table. "Ethan, I brought you breakfast by the way." The ambiguity of this, by the way, was a bit big. Looking at the message sent on my phone, probably because we were still not very familiar with each other, I was too embarrassed to refuse, so I thanked him and picked up the breakfast and walked towards the library entrance. I didn't really like having breakfast. Sometimes I thought I would do some practice questions first and then eat when I felt like it while doing the questions. But unexpectedly, once I started doing the questions, I got so absorbed that it was already noon. When I came back after having lunch, the cold breakfast was even less likely to be touched. Later, in order to avoid waste, I simply didn't bring the breakfast bought from the cafeteria but some vacuum-packed bread bought from the supermarket. But I still didn't remember to eat it. Over time, the habit of not having breakfast was formed. Gabriel knew I had this habit, but he never persuaded me and just let me do as I liked. Leaning against the long corridor of the library and looking at the egg and milk in my hand, a warm feeling rose in my heart. It had always been me bringing breakfast for others. This was the first time that someone brought something for me. Unexpectedly, once it started, it continued. After having breakfast for the first time, it was even harder to refuse later. Ethan really tried various ways to bring me breakfast. I suspected that he had visited all the breakfast shops around the school. I also gradually developed from being embarrassed at the beginning to being able to sit calmly at the library entrance with him and eat noodles later. You've got sauce on the corner of your mouth. Ethan stared at the corner of my mouth, his eyes bright. I reached out and wiped it casually. It's still there. I couldn't feel it myself. Just as I was about to take out my phone, Ethan's hand had already reached out before mine and his fingertip gently wiped the corner of my mouth. Obviously I was the one being touched, but Ethan's face turned redder than anyone else's. It seemed more like I had bullied him. I was just about to make a teasing comment. Suddenly there was a snap sound behind me as if something had fallen. I turned around and saw Gabriel at a glance. He was looking at Ethan and me with an incredulous look on his face. I hadn't seen him for a while since the last confession incident. It was strange. Before, I used to count down the seconds with my fingers, impatiently wanting to see him. But now when I saw him appear in front of me, I felt very reluctant in my heart. It seemed that even his existence was unbearable to me. Ethan looked at me and then at Gabriel and whispered in my ear, "I'll go upstairs first. I'll help you throw away the garbage." His warm and fresh breath made my ears a bit itchy. I nodded, "I'll come up soon." Ethan's eyes regained their smile. "Okay, I'll wait for you." After Ethan went upstairs, Gabriel walked up to me step by step. I didn't want others to see that I still had some entanglement with him, so I signaled him to walk towards the woods beside us. Gabriel stared at me with a bit of emotion hidden in his eyes. "Porridge, you clearly didn't used to have breakfast before. Why do you start having breakfast now?" His voice was terribly hoarse and unconsciously carried a bit of caution. "Is that what you came to ask me?" I used to have endless patience with him, but at this moment, I even felt that it was a waste of time to say a word to him. "I'll leave if there's nothing else." Before I could take a step, he grabbed my hand, gripping it so hard that my palm hurt. I subconsciously shook his hand off forcefully and said impatiently in his astonished eyes, "What the hell do you actually want to say?" Finally, Gabriel calmed down and looked a bit aggrieved. "Don't you want that notebook? I'll give it to you." After saying that, he handed the notebook to me. On the cover of the notebook were the words, "I hope my boyfriend studies hard." Seeing these words, I felt a tingling sensation on my scalp and almost couldn't make a sound at once. It wasn't because of Gabriel but because of myself, who had been so silly and devoted when I was with him. It turned out that even if a scar healed, once it was reopened, I would still remember the pain I had suffered back then. After a while, I found my voice. "I don't want it anymore." I hadn't wanted this notebook for a long time because for the knowledge points I couldn't remember, I could always find the answers from Ethan. There was a long silence. It was so long that I thought neither of us would speak again. Suddenly, Gabriel asked me in a very soft and tentative tone, "Are you with him just to make me feel bad?" Then he continued on his own, with his brows tightly furrowed, looking really pained. "Porridge, I'm so sad. So, could you please not be with him?" I looked up at him. It was still the same face, but at this moment, I couldn't find a single reason to love him. "Gabriel, you have a girlfriend. Don't be so cheap." I was surprised that I would say such harsh words to him one day, but then I immediately felt it was quite reasonable. "Who I'm with and what I do have nothing to do with you." After saying this, I didn't look at him again and turned around to go back to the library. When Ethan heard my footsteps, he raised his head and smiled at me. Then he pushed a piece of scratch paper towards me. The paper was filled with the problem-solving ideas for the question I had asked him, detailed and patient. In the sunlight, there was faint fluff visible on his face. His skin was surprisingly good, and his nose was straight. He was really good-looking. I was mesmerized for a moment. Before I realized it, I impulsively wrote something on the blank space of the scratch paper. "Let's go to the movies on the day after the postgraduate entrance examination." Just as I was about to take it back, Ethan had already replied on the paper, "Sure." Seeing that the appointment had been settled, I shifted my gaze to look at him again. Sure enough, the tips of his ears turned red again. It seemed that Gabriel gave up on taking the postgraduate entrance examination. On the basketball court that we passed by from the dormitory to the library, the shouts cheering for him echoed again. I didn't want to listen, but the noisy words still poured into my ears one after another. What's Gabriel looking at? How could he miss such a good shot? It's not like him at all. You don't understand. He's looking at his girlfriend. The person who spoke obviously had some doubts. Huh? No way. Isn't his girlfriend right across the court? I raised my head and unexpectedly met Gabriel's gaze. I didn't know when he had dyed his hair a dark red color. He was still wearing the hoodie that I bought for him. He still looked carefree and unrestrained, but at the moment our eyes met, I saw intense emotion swirling in his eyes. He stared at me tightly, as if he was afraid that I would run away. He was still dribbling the ball and jumped up. But how could a person do two things at once, especially during a game like this? In the next instant, Gabriel landed from the air, lost his balance as expected, and fell to the ground. Gabriel, are you okay? The crowd rushed over, and the chirping concerns filled the whole court. I subconsciously looked at my school bag. Originally, there was a space in it for the Yunnan Bayou spray and gauze, but unconsciously, it had already been replaced by the collection of error-prone points that Ethan wrote for me. The crowd was still shouting, "Quickly call Gabriel's girlfriend over." Where's Grace? Where is she? A girl's voice was soft yet powerful. I'm here. I have a spray in my bag. Before this voice dissipated, it was already covered by Gabriel's voice, which was gritted with pain. I don't want you. I want porridge. Where's porridge? I want porridge. He sounded like a child who hadn't grown up begging for candy, both aggrieved and unreasonable. But only those who are favored are qualified to act coquettishly. Gabriel had long lost all his qualifications in front of me. I lowered my head and quickened my pace to walk towards the library. The next time I heard about Gabriel was from Grace's phone call. Her voice on the phone was still gentle without any sign of anger. Her boyfriend was looking for his ex-girlfriend after getting injured. I thought she would call me with anger and hysteria. I never expected her tone to be so light. Gabriel is hospitalized. It's quite serious. Do you want to come and see him? Her voice was very soft and gentle, making it hard to dislike her. I won't go. As if she had expected it, she replied, I knew you wouldn't come. There seemed to be something knocked over on her side of the phone, and there was the sound of things colliding. She suppressed the emotions in her voice. Gabriel, what's the use of losing your temper with me? If you have the guts, go to her on crutches. I didn't know what was said in reply on his side. In the next moment, I heard the sound of the door closing and Grace's voice became a bit louder. He's been clamoring to find you all the time. I was puzzled and said, you're his girlfriend. Her laughter came through the phone with a hint of self-mockery. Am I? I almost forgot myself. After a pause, she spoke again. I've never been treated like this before. It would be a lie to say I'm not angry. But then I thought about it. I should be angry with him, not you. I saw you on the playground that day, and also on the day when he confessed to me. I've been observing you and inquiring about you all the time, wondering which girl could make him so unforgettable. Later, I realized that it's not that he likes you so much. It's just that the most unforgettable thing is often the one that you can't get. Just like how it was for me back then and how it is for you now. Grace was more sober than me and could let go more easily than me. She sniffed and choked up a bit, but it was just for a moment, and then she returned to normal. Porridge, a person like him doesn't deserve me, let alone you. I never dreamed that I would hear such words from her. I thought that if it wasn't for our embarrassing identities, perhaps she and I could have become good friends. What about you two? As if knowing what I was going to ask, she sneered, of course we'll break up, but not now. I don't want to bear the bad reputation of dumping him just because he's sick. On the day of the postgraduate entrance examination, the classroom was filled with the rustling sound of answering questions. Looking at the test questions, I felt a sense of relief as if I had finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, after finishing the last subject and stepping out of the examination room, a guy like a puppy tilted his head. Congratulations on finishing the exam. You're one step closer to Ethan's heart. As he said that, he naturally held my hand and looked straight ahead on the road. This was the first time Ethan held my hand. Seeing how natural he was, I thought he really wasn't nervous. Just as I was about to make fun of him, I found that there were beads of sweat on his forehead. It was December. After all, I had overestimated him. After finally having a meal, Ethan's hand tightly clung to mine again, fitting perfectly between my fingers, warm and dry. Why hadn't I noticed that he was so clingy before? We chose a movie. We didn't choose the theme well. It was a love movie with a bad ending. But neither of us in the cinema focused completely on the movie. In the dark light and shadow, I saw a head constantly approaching me, and just when it was about to touch me, he broke the atmosphere and said, "You can still say no at this time. I won't overstep the boundary." He spoke in a breathy voice, and his warm breath sprayed on the side of my neck. The distance between us was so close that I could see his long fluttering eyelashes in the flickering light and shadow of the cinema. With a gulp, I saw Ethan's Adam's apple move up and down. I couldn't help but take the initiative to lean forward and put my arms around his neck. Until the movie ended, neither of us could tell what the movie was about. We could only glimpse each other's faces that were as red as a monkey's but out of the corner of our eyes. After the postgraduate entrance examination, there was suddenly a lot more free time. Although we had to do the graduation design, Ethan and I still had plenty of time to be affectionate with each other. I finally asked the question that had been hidden in my heart, "Ethan, what do you like about me?" Only after asking did I realize that I was surprisingly nervous. Ethan pinched the tip of my nose. "You're so nice. There's everything to like about you." He stared into my eyes for a while before slowly talking about the origin of his love for me. "Do you know how self-disciplined you are? No matter it's windy or rainy, you're always in that position, unshakable. As long as I look up, I can see you. Every time I'm so annoyed when doing questions and even want to give up a little bit, as long as I see you, my state of mind will become calm." He pinched my cheek gently again and then continued. "Also, you probably forgot that you once lent me an umbrella. I was taking shelter from the rain at the library entrance. You took the initiative to hand me the umbrella and smiled at me and said, 'Come on,' just like an angel." He mumbled again, "It would be nice if that annoying ex-boyfriend wasn't there." His words reminded me of that time. Both Gabriel and I had umbrellas. When I saw a tall figure at the library entrance waiting for the rain to stop while reciting words, I didn't think twice and handed him my umbrella and casually said, "Come on." Gabriel had sneered at me for that, saying that I was meddling in other people's business. "Do you know how much I dislike your ex-boyfriend? Fortunately, now we're officially a couple, instead of me going back to the library alone and gloomy like last time. If he pesters you again this time, I'll have the confidence to deal with it." Ethan was quite smug, smiling freely, full of youthful spirit. It turned out that this guy had been secretly sulking and competing behind my back. I stood on tiptoe and gently touched his lips. "I'll give you the right to be jealous. Cherish it." Ethan became pushy. His scorching gaze almost burned me. He lowered his voice and called my name. Porridge. Suddenly, a tightly stretched string in my mind broke. Ethan was very clingy. He often lingered at the dormitory entrance and wouldn't let me go in. I didn't mind it either and didn't want to part with him. Finally, when we managed to separate under the moonlight, I saw that he was smiling more happily than anyone else. "Off you go." Ethan kept looking back as he walked away, with a strong sense of reluctance in his eyes. After finally seeing him off, I was just about to enter the dormitory when my hand was suddenly pulled hard. I turned around and met a pair of red eyes. "Porridge, I broke up." Gabriel was gripping my hand tightly. I tried several times to break free but couldn't. I really used some force. I looked at my arm and, sure enough, it was red. He had never known how to take care of other people's feelings. It was like this when we were together and it was the same after we broke up. I looked at him with an indifferent expression. "Oh, what a coincidence. I have a boyfriend now." Gabriel took a step forward. His foot seemed not to have fully recovered yet, and when he moved, there was an instant hiss sound. His voice became even hoarser, and the emotions in his eyes were boiling. Porridge, I love you. I can't live without you. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. He had always been carefree and unrestrained, but tonight, it seemed to me that his pride had been completely shattered. Please don't leave me, okay? If it had been when we were together before, I would never have had the chance to see him like this. You're pinching my hand so hard that it hurts. Gabriel was stunned for a moment and then let go of my hand. You'll never learn to be nice to others. No matter who it is, it seems that anyone who loves you has to be prepared to endure hardships. But Gabriel, why should that be? I'm sorry, I interrupted him. I really don't like you anymore. My boyfriend is very jealous. Don't ever show up in front of me again. After saying this, I lifted my foot and was about to walk inside. The voice behind me was very soft, restrained, and subdued. My birthday is coming soon. You said you'd make a cake for me with your own hands. The sound of unlocking the door rang out, and I didn't look back. When you learn to love others, someone will make a cake for you, but that person won't be me. The voice behind me choked. Porridge, I'll wait for you. I didn't stop walking. Whatever. As soon as I lay down on the bed, Ethan's special ringtone rang. Come out for a moment. I almost forgot to give you something. I rushed out of the door. The night was as cool as water. Ethan's straight back was covered with a silver edge under the moonlight. What is it? My hand was grasped and pulled into his arms. Slowly, his fingers wrapped around the silk thread, and below it was a square box. I made a cake. He was obviously looking for praise, and I couldn't help laughing. But it's not my birthday today. Ethan clasped my other hand, our fingers intertwined tightly. Who said you can only eat cake on your birthday? What's the use of having a boyfriend? There was deep affection in his eyes, and my heart softened. In his pupils that reflected me, I stood on tiptoe. Our eyes met, and it was hard to say who took the initiative. When it ended, Ethan's breathing became heavier, and he lowered his voice, again and again. I love you, Porridge. Postscript, after Ethan and I finished being affectionate, it started to drizzle in the sky at some point. It was hazy. I ran back to the room to get an umbrella for Ethan. He smiled happily. It's still this umbrella, our love token. The umbrella was big but ugly. I didn't know which bank had given it away. Only Ethan could cherish it like a treasure. Off you go. I was afraid that if he didn't leave soon, he might really have to spend the night leaning against the bicycle shed. All right. After Ethan left, I noticed a figure in the grass behind the bicycle shed. I didn't know how long he had been standing there. His hair was wet and scattered on his face, still dripping water. He looked so wretched, like a stray dog. That was the last time I saw Gabriel. After that, on the day Ethan graduated from graduate school, he proposed to me in front of all the teachers and students of the school. He covered his lips and pretended to cough, trying to act calm, but what he said made all that pretense disappear. Honey, say yes. The others jeered, sister-in-law, don't say yes. He's already calling you honey before you've even agreed. He's not being a proper man. With Ethan's blushing cheeks, I whispered in response. Okay. The wedding was held as scheduled. There were guests coming and going. Unexpectedly, I received a notebook. Beside the words, I hope my boyfriend studies hard, there were a few new words. After waiting for so many years, I still can't wait for you in the end. I casually threw the notebook into the trash can. A belated affection is ultimately cheaper than grass.